If I could turn a little bit specifically to Tiverton, also in your General Assembly address, you mentioned community buy-in. Our perspective as a community taxpayer group really is that there's a sense of conflict almost with school committee approving reckless contracts right before financial town meetings as if to lock the town in. They haven't until last week revealed millions of dollars in restricted funds. And the appearance now is that they're trying to supplement that now that it's decreasing after stimulus aid with local funds. And to do that, they're manipulating numbers and legal statutes to justify higher requests than the 4.5% cap. Trying to scare parents about the horrible things that will happen if they don't vote for high tax increases, 9% or above at this point. Basically, as I said, a sense of working against the community to get more money. I'm wondering, is that dynamic something that ought to be a concern of your office, and if so, how?
Well, so I don't want to comment on that specific situation because I don't have any familiarity with what's happening locally. Although I have heard some concerns about some of what is happening. And what I would say about that is that our office can help provide data, can help provide legal opinions. So, you said, depending on what the law requires and so forth, we can, it's one of our statutory obligations, one of our responsibilities to provide legal advisories to communities when they have a question about, if something's allowable or not allowable, or what's required or not required, or, whether they can do one thing or another. And so, my response to that is that I know this is a difficult time for communities across the state. This economy is just throwing everybody for a loop, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. And so we all really have to make sure that we're working together, and we would make ourselves available in whatever way we can to provide data, legal opinions, and other kinds of supports for communities as those decisions are made.
And that's not only for community groups, I imagine, as well as
I think so. I mean, I'm not sure how the legal advisories, how that works, but certainly we provide data requests to anybody. That's public information.
Well, for example, one of the things the school committee is currently arguing to get a higher request more than the 4.5% is that the state cut $300,000 in aid and supplemented it with federal dollars. Their argument is that that should be accounted as local contributions, so their baseline for the 4.5% is $300,000 more than what was approved at the financial town meeting. That may be too specific for you to know what suggestions to offer here, but I'm just, is that the sort of thing that taxpayer groups or individuals could contact your office to find out?
Well, we actually do have a request for an opinion about that particular issue and have not issued a response to it. But what I can say is that the use of federal funds, the use of those stabilization dollars are taken very, very seriously by my office and by the federal government. And so, we'll make sure that we provide that guidance to the community.
Okay. Switching gears a bit, I've done some thorough, as far as a part-time hobbyist, analysis of SATs in Rhode Island, and what I've determined is that private schools do well in Rhode Island at SATs, and there's a high percentage of students, Rhode Island students, in private schools. However, Rhode Island has one of the highest differentials between public and private school in the nation. One of the things I've noticed as a parent is that you essentially have to go to private school to get the services that I grew up with in public school in New Jersey in the 80s. Do you think Rhode Island needs to make a point of attracting high-performing students back to public schools, and if that's a concern, or if we're just at this point, still trying to get the baseline of everybody's education up to a certain minimum?
Well, I think that as we start to demonstrate to the community that the quality of education that they receive in the public system is the level of quality that they are seeking, that that students will come back to the public schools. But But my expectation is that every school in the state is improving performance, and that's on every kind of measure, including things like the SAT. I mean, we don't use that as a measure that we measure our success formally, just because it's not aligned to our standards, but certainly it's something that we look at, and it's certainly important for students' own personal success and where they end up going to college and that type of thing. And I think one of the things that we have to be aware of in our state is that while we have a lot of need to improve our lowest achieving schools and our persistently lowest achieving schools, we have a lot of progress to make across the board throughout the state, including in districts that many people consider to be high performing, that I actually think need to be stepping up. And particularly for individual students, we need to make sure that every student in the state is being supported in their, to reach their greatest capacity academically.
Well, to narrow the question a little bit, charts can be scary. This is just for illustration. This is per pupil spending for Tiverton, because I live there, and Rhode Island in general. Part of the perpetual increase in the instructional teachers line is remuneration structures, such as sometimes with the double-digit increases because of steps and then raises on top of that. Some of it's also requirements for highly trained teachers who focus on just a few children for special education. You mentioned earlier a school having a butterfly farm. That seems, from the perspective, my perspective, to be the kind of thing that gets quickly pushed out the window when the budgets come due and the contract negotiations step up. And is there some mechanism?
Well, I had a butterfly garden in my school, and it didn't have anything to do with anybody's contract. It was just something that that we did because it was wonderful for the school. But anyway, so wait, what's your question?
My question is this a matter of concern that more and more of the ever-increasing budgets are going to the salary lines and squeezing others, so to the extent that towns are getting rid of sports, or Tiverton, there's talk of eliminating the math club, and if you go in the auditorium, there are signs, math club, state champions. Stuff like that is of high concern to me, and also ties back to attracting high-performing students to the schools.
Right.
My question is just if that's something that you're concerned about.
Well, I'm certainly concerned about making sure that we are not cutting back programs that we know provide a much richer education for our students, whether that's something like a math club or a chess club or the arts or sports or other extracurriculars. I think those are incredibly important parts of the overall educational experience for students in our state, and we need to do everything we can to preserve them. It concerns me to see when we have reductions like we are having right now, and the decision is that we're going to stop doing things like the arts or sports or whatever. That really concerns me, because when I look at what we spend on a per pupil basis, I believe that we have enough funding to maintain those kinds of programs and the rest of our academic program. And what we need is better data, better information about where that money is going. And fortunately, we have the Uniform Chart of Accounts that is fully in place right now. So this coming summer, we will have detailed information about every district and where their investments are going, and then be able to compare apples to apples, what different districts are doing and where that money is going. And I think that'll be really, really helpful.